Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another video. It's been a while. Don't ever get a full-time job. It drains the hell out of your energy. But anyway, we're back here and look at this. No UI mode that we now have. Is this a new feature? I've never known about this, but that's pretty cool. Anyway, we're back here because my favorite, well, one of my two favorite characters is rerunning on this upcoming banner tomorrow. And I wanted to make a quick video not only about Raiden, but also about Chevreuse and Chevreuse teams and why I think this upcoming banner is amazing. So let's go to a more fitting location since we're talking about Raiden. If I can find it, man, this world map is starting to get crazy, man. So many continents. Here we are. So people recently have been talking about how good Raiden really is. I mean, obviously she's rerunning, so people talk about her a lot. And I'll give my own opinion in this video real quick, and then we'll go into some team talk and some team showcases. So Raiden, in my opinion, is still a very good character, even at C0. Now, it's been a while since I've had her at C0, but when she first released, I played her at C0 for quite a while until her first rerun. Plus, I do occasionally try to simulate a C0 experience by running a 3-star weapon, and I did that for this video as well, and we'll get to it later. She is still very good at C0. Now, she is not on the same tier as the top tier DPSs when it comes to her own damage output. She's not on the same level as Arlecchino, Neuvillette, Navia, Clorant, Alhaitham, but that's because damage is pretty much all that these characters do, whereas that's not the case with Raiden. She also increases your team's damage in various ways. So first of all, her elemental skill, this one right here, increases your team's burst DPS. So that's very useful if you run characters like Zhangling or Yelan, who have very significant burst damage during your rotation. And then also her elemental burst, which I'm not going to use here, restores your team's energy during Raiden's DPS window when she uses her burst. That means that you are able to run less energy recharge on your character and instead focus on more damage stats, like crit value, for example. I'm not a theory crafter and I don't run calcs, but from my own personal experience of playing Raiden since release, it obviously depends on how much ER you build on her, because the more ER you build on Raiden, the more energy she restores for the team as well. But from my own personal experience, with the way I've got her set up right now, if you run Raiden, you can run about 30% less ER on your characters. So that's about 5 or 6 substats worth of energy recharge that you can instead invest into crit substats, for example. So that's pretty significant. But in addition to increasing the team's damage, Raiden also is exceptionally comfortable to play, because during her DPS window she has infinite interruption resistance, which is very nice. In order to get the same level of comfort from a top tier DPS like Neuvillette, like Arlecchino, unless you have C1 Neuvillette, of course, right? But other characters like Clorant as well and stuff, you would need to run a Shielder or someone like Dea who provides interruption resistance. And if you do that as well, then you're not building your team for max damage, so the damage difference between a Raiden team and an Arlecchino team, for example, then becomes even smaller. So Raiden increases your team's damage in a number of ways, through directly buffing the burst damage, through allowing less energy recharge, and also by bringing her own quality of life and not requiring another character specifically for that quality of life, right? In addition to that, she also doesn't have anti-quality of life like Arlecchino or Clorant, for example, who cannot even be healed by anyone other than themselves. Yes, her own damage is not top tier, it's a solid tier or tier and a half below the top tier DPSs, but if you consider the value that she brings to the table otherwise, through comfort, through indirect damage increases or direct damage increases for your team, she's actually still very competitive with those units. That being said, that's at Z0. At C2, Raiden becomes significantly more powerful as an on-field DPS. Now, obviously, other characters become stronger with constellations as well, but I would say most top-tier DPSs going from C0 to C2 get quite a bit stronger, but Raiden going from C0 to C2 becomes a lot stronger. If you are interested in a character at all, if you like them, the design, the playstyle, if you want to play them, and that's really the only metric that you should look at when it comes to whether or not you should pull a character, you can rest assured that you're not getting a bad character, you're still getting a very good character. And if you are at all interested in dolphining out a little bit on this upcoming banner, well, Raiden C2 has you covered, man. She provides insane value at that point. And speaking about insane value, This upcoming banner is incredible because not only does it have Raiden, and we're talking about the Raiden side of Phase 2, but it also has the first rerun of Chevreuse, and we're getting Sara as well as Thoma, so that is a fully functional team, and it is a very, very good team as well. So let's talk about the Chevreuse team, specifically with Raiden, next. So this right here is basically the team that you're getting. You remember this old Yu-Gi-Oh! Structure decks that you used to buy 3 copies of and then put the best cards into one deck and you'd have a really good budget starter deck competitively? That's kind of what this banner is. You have your on-field DPS, you have the core of your team facilitating the team's damage. She's also the healer. You have another buffer which is especially good for the on-field DPS. And you have Thoma, who provides off-field pyro application, thereby triggering Chevreuse's damage buff, and he also provides a shield, which is nice quality of life, of course. With those 4 characters, Thoma is the most replaceable unit, I would say. You could realistically run good old Xiangling here as well. She would be the premier damage option. You could run Daya as well. And I made a full video about this team here specifically, which I might link somewhere, I don't know, but this is still my very favorite team in the game as of right now. But a 4th option is of course also good old Bennett. Now if you're running this composition, you basically have a Raiden hyper team that doesn't require Kazuha, which is great because then you can still use him on another team. But that's one of the strengths of a Chevreuse team in general. It doesn't use a lot of the units that you would typically want to use. A lot of the top meta units like Furina, Kazuha, Neuvillette, none of them are on here obviously, which is very nice. Bennett, you can run him on here, but you absolutely don't have to. So yeah, you have 4 really good options for this slot between Bennett, Thoma, Xiangling and Daya. For this video I'm mostly going to focus on Xiangling here. And then this 3rd slot here, Sara, is also quite replaceable. You could run Fischl, of course, a much cheaper alternative. You can also run a Yaimiku if you want. And of course you could also go with another pyro option in this slot as well, like Bennett for example. The reason I don't like Bennett much in this team in particular is because he is confined to a small circle, which is not very conducive to running an overloaded team that knocks enemies away. And also look at him. So let's quickly talk about Raiden. We're using her in a Chevreuse team here, of course, but you do not have to run her in a Chevreuse team. You can run her in a number of teams, in Aggravate, Quick Bloom, just Mono Electro, I guess, Hyper Raiden, Raiden National, all kinds of different things. Electrocharged, for example. You can also use her as an elemental mastery applier. Because let's talk about her kit here. Her elemental skill triggers off-field electro damage, has a really long uptime which is super comfortable, and it even triggers at a range, which makes it exceptionally versatile. And yeah, this is what basically allows the elemental mastery off-field playstyle for Raiden as well. This elemental skill also increases the team's elemental burst damage, and it's really nice. And then her signature ability is of course her elemental burst, which does very, very good amounts of on-field damage. There's a very large initial slash that does tons of damage, and then for 7 seconds, I believe it is, she uses her famous Booba sword and goes to town on enemies. During this damage window, she also restores the energy of everyone on the team, which is very nice. Let's talk about Chevreuse quickly. Chevreuse, essentially what she does at C6 at least, right, is she reduces the pyro and electro resistance of enemies. She also boosts the pyro and electro damage that you deal, and she gives you a 40% attack. I think it's a 40% attack damage bonus. Yeah, up to 40%. And in addition to that, she is also a healer, so that is insane value. So let's talk about Sara. What she does is basically imagine Bennett if his attack buff was a lot shorter, but if it didn't require you standing in a field. She is very clunky to play at C0. But at C2 she becomes a bit more comfortable to play. In most teams at C0 she does not provide all that great value, especially with the short uptime on her elemental skill. That's not great in most teams. It's still a nice buff for characters that can snapshot like Xiangling, but you would never run these 2 characters together in a team other than a Chevreuse team. However, for electro DPS specifically, she becomes a very good buffer at C6. Because of the 60% increased electro damage, crit damage. And this is why I would say that this banner, this upcoming banner, is really good value, not only for new players who don't have these units yet, but also for players who have been around for a bit and who might be missing out on some of these constellations still. Raiden is a very good unit at C0, very versatile, but she's a great unit at C2 and beyond. Chevreuse is a good unit at C0, but she becomes an S tier support at C6. She basically provides Kazuha levels of buffing and of value. Granted, she is not quite as versatile with regards to her team options, but she is also easier to use, or at least easier to utilize her kit rather. Because all you need to do in order to trigger the damage increase from Chevreuse is do overloaded reactions, which, if you build your team right, happens anyway. You don't need to think about how you're going to set up your swirls and stuff like that. Then we have Sara, which at C0 is honestly a subpar unit. Even at C2, when she becomes more comfortable, she is still a subpar unit. However, at C6, specifically for electro DPSs, she becomes a good unit. The reason I'm hesitant to say a very good unit is because she is still not very versatile, but if you use her in the right team, she can provide very good value. The good thing about Xiangling is that you basically only need her at C0 and she's already broken. So this is the team I'm going to show off in the Abyss in a second here, but before we do, let's go over the equipment that I've got first. My Xiangling is not very well built, she's obviously at C6. I'll quickly go over her artifacts. I'm running the emblem set, which is really the only good option. It's the best option by far because you want to focus entirely on her elemental burst damage. I would say that her artifacts overall are good, but not necessarily very good. I'm running the catch on her, which might as well be her signature weapon. Gives her everything she needs, ER, and buffing her elemental burst. That's very nice. Keep in mind that she's currently buffed by the Imaginarium Theater buff, which I hate. I wish I could turn this off. I don't think there's a way. I hate playing with borrowed power, which is also why I don't ever use food buffs, but it is what it is. So these are her stats currently with the Pyro Resonance, 1900 attack, and then these are her stats. Energy recharge is pretty low, just below 200. The reason I'm able to run this is because I'm running her in a Raiden team. Typically, if you're not running her with Raiden, you would want to have 220, 230, if not even more ER, honestly. Then we have Sara. What you want to make sure with her is that you run as high a base attack as possible. And then these are the artifacts on her. Let's go over them. She's also running Emblem. Realistically, you could run Noblesse, which would probably be better because then she'd provide even more buffing, but with this particular team I'm already running Noblesse on Chevreuse. I guess I could put Songs of Days Past on Chevreuse instead, but I don't want to mix things around too much. So this is not a super optimal setup, but it still works. It's still very nice. Then here's Chevreuse. Like I said, I made this whole video about the Dea Raiden team, which is my favorite team in the game. But the reason I pulled Chevreuse C6 on her very first run is because of that exact reason. So yeah, she is at C6 and she's running the Noblesse set, like I said. You can quickly see the artifacts here. The weapon she uses is the Deathmatch, provides a nice crit ratio for her, and it fits her style pretty well. These are her overall stats. Again, this ER is a bit on the low side, but it works because of Raiden. And here we have Sara. I didn't show her overall stats, I think. There we go. And this is my Raiden. Her artifacts are pretty cracked for the most part. I have to admit, this feather in particular, pretty crazy. I do run her with the Engulfing Lightning. R1. These are my stats, 280% ER. I do like running her with a lot of ER, I have to say, because that way she becomes more useful as a battery. Very nice crit ratio. Crit value is hard to get on her because she doesn't get crit value from any sources, and you need to build a lot of ER on her. Which is fine because she scales with it though, that's the thing, because she gets free electro damage bonus based on how much ER she has, so that's nice. And yeah, she runs a crap ton of attack because I run an attack goblet because she gets electro damage for free from her ER, like I said. I do have her at Constellation 3, so she is very, very powerful, but what I'll do is, with this showcase, I'll show you one run where I use the Engulfing Lightning, and then one run where I switch to this crappy 3-star Black Tassel, which has very low base attack, has a completely wasted substat and a completely useless passive. And using this compared to the Engulfing Lightning pretty much cuts the damage in half, and that's gonna be my pseudo C0 simulation. So yeah, I'll show you the 2 runs of this team, first with the Engulfing Lightning, then with the crappy 3-star weapon, and then we'll be back to talk about it quickly. So here we are, as you could see with the Engulfing Lightning, we beat the chamber in about 38 seconds. And with the 3-star weapon we did it in about 55 seconds, which is still, I mean, a pretty fast time, honestly. So with the C0 simulation we were still pretty successful, and with the Engulfing Lightning, I mean, obviously we were kind of broken with how much damage Raiden dealt. But that is one team. What I'll do now is I'll switch to another team, because let's just say maybe you don't want to go all the way to C6 Kuchusara. Well, Chevreuse still provides pretty good value even at C0, Kuchusara not so much, right? So in that case what we can do is honestly just run Fischl instead. And I'll quickly show you my Fischl stats as well. I am running the Thundering Pulse on her. It fits her pretty well aesthetically, but also this is sort of to make up for the crappy Golden Troop artifact set that I have on her. I mean, look at these pieces. I mean, this one's actually pretty good, but then this one is pretty terrible. This one's okay. This one's pretty terrible too, honestly. So not great artifacts, which means that she does not have great stats overall. If you look at this, there are way better Fischls out there that don't run Thundering Pulse, but it is, you know, it is workable. So for this team, like with the last team as well, I'll show you the Engulfing Lightning run first, and then the C0 pseudo simulation with the 3-star weapon on Raiden. As you could see with the engulfing lightning run, actually interestingly enough we beat the chamber in 38 seconds as well, but with the 3-star weapon, with the C0 simulation, we were actually slightly quicker than with the Fischl Sara variant. We beat it in about 50 seconds, and that makes sense because Fischl Sara becomes more valuable as a buffer the stronger your Raiden is. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So I didn't go over all the Chevreuse team options with my showcase. I just mentioned a few. I didn't go over all the Raiden team options as well. We'd be here tomorrow still if I did that. The reason is because Chevreuse and Raiden are rerunning together, and I specifically wanted to talk about that duo in this video and some of the best team options in my opinion. There's one team option again with Dea that I didn't show off here because I already made a whole video about that a couple of months back. But yeah, that's it gamers. Like I said, this upcoming Phase 2 banner of the patch 5.0 is very good. Specifically the Raiden side of it, because you get a full team right from the get-go. It's a very nice team, it's a very competitive team. It doesn't use a lot of the units, or really any of the units that you would maybe want to use on your other side for the Abyss. I highly recommend pulling it if you are interested in playing those characters, which is the most important thing of course. As for myself, in the future I will try to increase the upload frequency. It's very hard if you have a full-time job to find the energy and the motivation to do it, honestly, but I will endeavor to increase my upload schedule. And yeah, that's it for this video. See you in the next one. Have a good one, everybody.